Okay, so now you know the job, physics related job that you are interested in. What next? So next thing you're going to do is you need to find out some basic career information, job description, outlook, pay, things like that. So one of the major sources for that is called the Occupational Outlook Handbook. I highly recommend you start off with this 1 minute video. It could be that your teacher actually shows that to you. You can see that right there, but it's super helpful. So let's say that I am going to be doing video game development. And I've watched the video because there are different ways that you could get there. Um, I'm just typing in, there are hundreds of jobs in here. But I usually start off just thinking about the basic elements of that. So I just want to see what's related to video game in here. One thing you'll notice about the Occupational Outlook Handbook is that the official name may be something different than what you are putting in, or rather than how it's coded. So, you can have video game developer, or it could be video game designer. Those so you could use those interchangeably. And so one of the big things is, like, when I'm searching for job descriptions and stuff, knowing the other related job descriptions, or that different employers may be the same job, but they list them in different ways. And so two terms, designer and developer, are interchangeable. It's really important. So when I do that, I search on the Occupational Outlook Handbook. Then I do get some different things. So as I read more and as I've discovered more about it, I'm here like, well, is it an animator? I don't think that's really what I'm doing. I'm doing more of a, when we talk about video game developer, they are developing software. Okay. So I would read about all these, to figure out which one works best. But sometimes you're going with the best, like the best approximation, and just to get you started on some sort of information on that. And sometimes they will, here on the Occupational Outlook Handbook, they merge together. There's a whole bunch of jobs that they kind of put in this same category. Now, you may think that is not enough. I want more information. I get that. But it's a place to start. So, Occupational Outlook Handbook. We also end up here using some of our Google, our great Google abilities here. So you notice that after we use Occupational Outlook Handbook, it's like a recommendation. So what do we do? How can we Google and get high quality sources? So it has some recommendations for that. So if I'm looking for video game developer job description, as I start to type that in and I'm looking at what's available, a couple of things I look at here is Indeed has a lot. It's going to give you some recommendations here. And so that says sources for job descriptions, it says university websites and Indeed. So Indeed is definitely one of the ones I can use. And I see here that there will be some examples of that. And so I also see that this is from a university. When I open that up, I can see it's from the University of Washington here. And so that's one of my recommendations there that I can look at. I can look at Indeed. They do a lot of different things. So as I'm looking through these, there's some of them I don't even open because I'm here like, this is from something from the UK or Britain. This is just not, this is not a well-known place. Sometimes you have to look around, like this is study.com that's like taking tests, and so some of them are definitely better than others. And so part of that is just that you have to look around here. Another thing you can do is, like, if I'm trying to figure out, like, well, what is study.com? I can actually go to a different website or go to Google. I can literally Google study.com, and it will you can just like open it up in that different tab, and then like you think, okay, well, what are they doing here? Well, this is a test prep place, so it doesn't really make sense here for me to use that for career research. I mean, sure, tests can relate to that, but that probably wouldn't be my primary thing, like the occupational outlook handbook put out by the government is. So that's sort of the ways that this is called lateral reading. So I would, Nick, say I would not use study.com. I would use Indeed. I would use the big ones if they're a big employer. Um, I would if there was so if this is I would look around here. This is actually like they actually produce software and things like that. And so they actually have study courses online. So I think that this would be a good one to use. So that's all goes in my process of thinking through. So that it's a little trial and error, but I did give you ones to start with. Same thing here. Sources for pay. I would look at, game developer pay or game designer pay. How do I find sources for positive, negatives, and challenges? I really like to look at interviews on YouTube. So if I go to, if I was, going to that, you can actually just search in, Google to start off with. So if I say, okay, I'm gonna want to look at a game developer interview, I can type that in. I can look over there. Now you want to make sure that you're actually like not what are some typical interview questions, but you can find here like this is a game developer interview, and so you can watch a couple of these, get a get a good feel for them. You want to make sure that they are the more reputable ones, that these are actually real game designers, game developers. And so, again, opening another tab, Googling the person's name or the business name, who's Dice News, would they, or who's Jason Weimer. That's kind of how I would justify that. Those can be really good. Here on the LibGuide, if you remember right, we had those profiles of people who majored in physics, so you can use one of those there. A combination of Google Occupational Outlook Handbook can handle all. Of course, I'm happy to help. So, what about the societal impact? So, as you're reading about your job, you're getting a feel for like what they do and how much money they make and what they do in their job. But a lot of times for figuring out the societal impact, I will actually use a database called Science in Context. And this is where I want to find out some general news about the career. So, for example, I'm going to type in, and you may have to type in your username and password, your 190 number, and month, day of your birthday to log in. But I'm here, and I'm gonna uh, you know type in video game designer, and I'm kind of looking around here for that. I notice here, like when we talk about societal impact, like, oh, this kind of video game designers target world peace. Um, you know, uh, you know, game designers dissect what fizzles, and so you're kind of getting an idea here of what some of these things are involved. Sometimes, again, I will use instead of using a different word. So if I change it to developer, what happens? Are they the same? And so I just kind of, a lot of times I'm just kind of like looking through it just to see what kind of stands out to me. Um, and so, making it more appealing to girls, I might choose to read that article. Um, I can see problem solving through games. So these are all things that kind of spark my interest. And as I'm thinking about societal impacts, then that those are things that can kind of help me. So, and they're way more limited. You don't, in general, you don't just do societal impacts of video game development, and you don't like necessarily Google that and find the best sources. So just something to whet your, so just kind of think about that, know about your career, but then also maybe do some additional research on that. So, and the last part of that, as you're doing all this, is how is the physics used? And so a lot of times, again, if I was in here, I would maybe look for a YouTube video from a credible source, someone who is a company or actually that like trains people, a university website, and I might use something called Google News. So if I'm here like game developer physics, as I kind of look through here, I can see here, and I would look through here, how do developers implement physics in video games? So I'm kind of seeing here, just based off of these, that you can even take a course called Physics for Game Programmers. And that just kind of makes sense. Um, so there's also this thing called Google News, which means that it's actually the things that are in news. And so sometimes I'll look over there. And so this is like advantages and disadvantages about video game designers. That was actually one of your other questions. And so those tend to be a little bit more rectable. If I go over to all, which is like your basic Google search, sometimes it's just too much. I want to stay away from things like Reddit and Quora. I know you might use those in your own personal life. It's kind of like using Wikipedia. So a lot of times what I'm using is more of is Google News and Google videos to kind of like figure that out and have people talking about that. But you want to try to find reputable ones. You do have some suggestions on here. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be working with you more on Thursday and I can look at those. As you're doing this, you are keeping a separate list of all your sources. Now, what you can do is you can either go ahead and create a citation if you're like, oh, I really want to get back into that. But we're just kind of easing you into that. We're going to go really hard on the quality of your sources, but we're not looking as much at your actual having proper citation this time. What we're really looking, or even in-text citations, what we're really looking at is that all your sources you use are super high quality. Like you did the lateral, you opened the other tab, and you researched it, and you're not using Reddit, like you're not citing Wikipedia, that you're trying to make some good choices there, and there's lots of recommendations on here.